This week, a public figure died, Nelson Mandela. And his life exemplified several good things. And I want to point out two that I think, for me, are most important. He went to jail as a young man, an angry young man, fighting racial discrimination in his country, and spent almost a lifetime in prison. And when he came out, he did not come out like we expected him to come out. We would expect somebody to come out angry. And he came out willing to forgive. A surprisingly generous way of being. Somehow, some way, there was a transformation in him. And I think that's important for us as followers of Christ to ponder, that there are options about how we can respond to things, and some of our options reflect Christ better than others. Then the second piece that in all of that I think is so stunning for Christians to think about is that when the country was being re-put together, instead of finding every person who had done something wrong and finding a way for retribution and vengeance, they started what was called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And instead of doing things the normal way that we would expect, they tried something different. They tried to have a process where the truth could be told and where possible amnesty or forgiveness could be shared. And as you can imagine, through the years, the reactions to that have been varied. There are a lot of different feelings about that. However, just the possibility of doing something different like that is a glimpse for us to think differently about what Christ wants from us in all our relationships. And I think we get to the heart of it in our Old Testament lesson. And I want to take just a minute to advertise the Bible. Because sometimes I think we start reading it and we just assume that the words in here are going to be beyond us and we're not going to relate to them at all. But some of these words are for us clearly. It talks about a stump. We all know what a stump is, right? We can even think pretty easily about a stump being a metaphor, but I've got a stump in my front yard and I can't tell you how long ago it's been since there's been a tree there. It's been so long I could not tell you if the tree had been cut down or if it rotted from the inside and fell down. Trees die. This particular stump is the stump of Jesse. So, who can I pick on? 50 points. Who's Jesse? Father of David. So what the writer here, Isaiah the prophet, and prophets always get in trouble because they speak to power in ways that power doesn't like. The stump of Jesse, the ending of the kingly rule of David. From that, a sprout's going to come. There's going to be newness where we don't expect it from the line of David. And as the Christian church meets together, who do we believe that is? Jesus. Exactly. They didn't know that at the time, but there's a day when a new sprout's going to come. There's going to be new leadership, a new kind of leadership for the people. And what's that leader going to be like? Well, the Spirit of the Lord's going to rest on him. Wisdom, understanding, counsel, might, knowledge, fear of the Lord, and fear of the Lord. Why in the world would the writer say fear of the Lord twice? Probably because all those other kings down the line from David, they didn't bother with fear of the Lord. They didn't need to fear because they were the king. This one's going to fear the Lord double. Then, like all prophets do, the prophet's going to get us a little upset. You ready? He shall not judge by what his eyes see or decide by what his ears hear. How in the world can that be? Until you start thinking about kings and people in power. What do they see and hear? Everything they want to see and hear, don't they? And they're surrounded by people who say the right things to them and show them the things. Not this one. This one's going to be different. How? Well, with righteousness he shall judge the poor and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. He's going to take sides and be right and just and fair. In fact, his very clothes will be righteousness and faithfulness. We're getting a very different image from what's normal and what we expect. This new ruler, this new king is going to be very different, even with things that we don't like, because he'll strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. Those who don't do this new way of being. And then the really strange stuff. The stuff we see in pictures and light because it gives us a warm feeling. But when you really stop and think that the wolf will live with the lamb, the leopard will lie down with the kid, the calf and the lion and the fatling together, and a little child will lead them. The cow and the bear shall graze, their young shall lie down together, the lion shall eat straw like the ox, the nursing child shall play over the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the adder's den. They will not hurt or destroy on all my holy mountain. No more hurt and no more destruction. Is it possible for you to make that happen? No, or me. But with God, nothing is impossible. And we are called on this second Sunday of Advent, as we wait for Christ's return, to be anticipating his return, living into his return, standing up for the things that he's about as he's about to return, reflecting this in our lives, in our relationships, in our worship of God. That's powerful stuff. That makes the Truth and Reconciliation Commission look kind of small, even though it isn't. That we are called to live and follow this new, strange king who's about to come and put it all into play. And we get to start it and continue it now. And so we have this strange picture of violent parties living in peace. The powerful living in peace with the weak. None of us ever feel powerful, do we? Kings and presidents don't believe they're powerful. But God is calling into question how we do our power, how we live our lives, and how we come out of the places that are dark differently. You know, when I think about Mandela, I think about how many of us have experienced things in our lives that aren't fair, that have hurt us, that have figuratively put us in prison for a long time. And it's been dark. And if we do come out, because sometimes we're afraid and we stay in that dark place for a long time, don't we? But when we do come out, isn't it natural? Isn't it our desire to make somebody pay? And on this second Sunday of Advent, we are invited to consider a different possibility. Not a silly vulnerability, a powerful vulnerability. a willingness with truth to be at peace, to forgive, to live a different and strange life that reflects our Master, the one who came and lived it for us, who walked into the prison and walked out with arms open, inviting us to come out and open our arms too. And with God this season, it is possible. I invite you, as Christmas inches up, to be thinking about ways to put this into practice. And Christmas, as it comes, will remind you. You'll be starting to hear those old stories again that touch that place in your heart that you usually don't let become available. Those certain stories, those certain movies, those different things that part the wall. Yeah, let it fuel you. One of my favorites is The Gift of the Magi. It doesn't get played as much anymore, but it's a young couple that are very poor, and their only assets are the guy's got his dad's pocket watch, or grandfather's pocket watch, and she's got long, beautiful hair. That's it. And so he sells the watch to get her a brush set. She sells her hair to get a fob for the watch. To live with that type of risk and openness on the easier things and on the deeper things, with each other, with God. We start making that kingdom as He intended. And with God, all things are possible. Amen.